Welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters. Get ready to create magic and miracles as you lean into your heart's desires. I believe not only does the heart want what it wants, but it knows. This show is a weekly deep dive into what it means to live from an awakened heart. I'll be sharing inspiring stories and real conversations with people just like you, who have turned the ordinary into the extraordinary. My mission is to show you how you too can be connected and heart-centered in every area of your life. Your journey to aligning with more love, more joy, and your wildest dreams come true starts now. Welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast and Happy New Year. This is the first episode of 2024. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday. There's a lot in store for us in this epic year. And if you know numerology at all, it adds up to an 8-year. So the 8-year is a very high vibrational number. It represents the concept of infinity, if you think about it. There's no beginning and there's no end. It is associated with flow. If you want to manifest abundance this year, you can maybe write that down somewhere and keep it with you, or keep it in your wallet or whatnot, or before you want to do something, make the infinity symbol. And as a collective in 2024, we will enter a 3-year push, time of global transition and transformation, which is so needed. We've seen so many things happen over the last couple of years. All these things are surfacing only to be brought into the light of day so they can be made anew. So essentially, structures, existing systems, concepts, they'll either soar to new levels of success or they'll disintegrate while new ones take over. The 8 in numerology is also associated with the divine feminine power. How juicy and beautiful is that? 2024 is an intensely powerful year, demanding that we all step into the world with our eyes and hearts open, which is the very message of this entire podcast. Within that line here, I am thrilled to have a truly inspirational guest with us today. Susan Lazar Hart, a transformational mindset coach, mentor, and motivational speaker, is here to share her incredible journey of overcoming challenges, finding harmony in change, and empowering others to live fearlessly. With her infectious joy and transformative insights, Susan has touched the lives of thousands around the world. Her latest book, Breaking Free, guides readers on a transformative journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Get ready for a conversation filled with wisdom, laughter, and the keys to unlocking a life you love. Without further ado, let's dive into the enlightening world of Susan Lazar Hart. Hey, Susan, welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast.
Nancy, thank you so much for having me. I've been listening to some old podcasts. We've just had a wonderful conversation. So let's take this and go for it right into the future.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, I enjoyed our pre-conversation. I'm very looking forward to all the insights and all the wisdom that you're going to bring to our listeners. And I love that it's just really aligned with what I've recently, we've been talking about on this podcast. And it's about creating your own path forward, like leaving behind, there's so many shoulds that we feel as women that we've been trained to do from a little girl. We should be nice. We could be a good girl. Here, go to college, raise your family, stay in your marriage. And a lot of women are waking up at certain points of their life. Some wake up earlier on, others like have an aha later in life, midlife, where, a lot of us women are, it's like, well, what do I do next? Whose life is this that I'm leading? And you help coach women to, you have something called a congruent life, right? Congruent Living Academy. I love it, where you help women overcome fear, doubt, and worry, because that's just like wasted energy. Yeah. And I had asked you before we hit record, because I love how we tie spirituality into all this. And there's a lot of mystic components with being a woman and being connected to all that is in the universe. So I asked you to pull a card. So I would love for you to pull a card for this podcast, for this conversation that we're having. And maybe there's something that the audience really needs to hear right now. So I would love for you to pull a card, and I'd love for you to show the deck that you're using, because I know a lot of women that listen and the men as well do have their own sets of tarot cards and their divination tools.
Well, I'm good. Can I do a sidebar here?
Sure.
Okay. So before we pull a card, one of the things that Nancy and I were talking about is how many people are not actually taught to listen to their lives. And the truth is, we're not here alone. We have our guides, we have our intuition, we have our soulmates, we have our archangels. We are connected to everything and everyone on this planet Earth and beyond. So often when we go to, quote unquote, pull a card, a lot of people separate themselves from the cards they're pulling. They say, okay, I want this, or I want to hear that. Well, when I use cards, whether they're wisdom cards, and I'm actually about to create my own from the new book I just created, Breaking Free, Your Unique Path to Fearless Living. It's about being present with you first. It's about finding your center, not reaching for an answer, but being in the question. And being in the question of your life is the joy, is the gift that we have. So it could be, what question is the audience asking for? Are you asking for that we need direction with? So it's not about having to know, like, I want $1 million, or I want to create a business. Cards tell me what to do. What's my best step here? It's about honoring you and being present, getting in your body, finding that grounding, taking a breath, being with intention as you hold the cards, and then asking from there. And it could be, what clarity can I have today to take me to where I need to go for the highest good of all, or not at all? So why don't we ask that question? Does that feel right for you? Yeah. Do you notice the difference in space now? Yeah. And these cards I love. They're from Diana Cooper, and I'm going to hold them up. They're called Archangel cards. And I highly recommend you check her out. She's brilliant. She's from England. And let's just be present with the cards right now.
Okay.
So we have Archangel Samuel. And let me read to you what she says. Archangel Samuel, choose harmonious response, act with wisdom and grace. Love that. And that was my intention in setting the tone for pulling the cards, is for us to not choose out of desperation, but to choose from a place of centeredness, of wisdom and grace. So she says, if your soul wishes you to progress on your ascension path through the training schools, run on the inner places, that's from inside, you must first apply with this information to Archangel Metatron, and as soon as permission granted, Archangel Samuel will connect with you. So it's asking for permission for the connection. He prepares you for this higher intergalactic work by presenting you with challenges for your ego. He is sometimes known as the Angel of Death, for as well as breaking down all the blocks created by your ego, he tries to eradicate your negative ego. He orchestrates those stubborn trials that keep appearing in your life in order to bring about humanity. Drawing this card suggests you're on a fast track to ascension. For Archangel Samuel, it's preparing you to move forward. Your guidance to examine your motivation and your ego in all areas of your life. Be honest. Let go of your beliefs that you are right or your desire to be right. Whenever you have a thought that you are better or more spiritual than any other, cancel it. If you think your view is right or the only understanding, let it go. Take particular note of a problem that keeps coming back, for they contain the most important lessons. Choose a gentle and harmonious response to a person or situation. You are called to use your wisdom and act with grace at all times. The way to work with Archangel Samuel is to recognize that while you are a magnificent spiritual being, you are also a small cog in the vastness of the cosmos. Remember that death to your ego is life to your spirit. which
Mm.
I love because it
Mm-hmm.
really ties in with, are you listening to your life?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Being present and living with curiosity, living into the question,
Yeah.
because that leaves you open
Yes.
to insights and wisdom from yourself and
Yeah.
from your support team.
I mean, the one thing that we were never taught as children is to listen to your life. You're
Mm-hmm.
told what to do, where to go, when to pee,
Mm-hmm.
when to eat, what to learn as a very little being. And so you tend to build that as a habit into how you create your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so the courage to actually be in the question, to ask those questions. Well, who does that belief belong to? What's the value of holding on to this belief? And so that actually has you start listening to the life you're creating and then asking questions from there. And especially as you just pointed out, I love that, is when you're in the middle of your life, and it could be 12, it could be 5, it could be, we have many, many lives in one lifetime. It's that point where you turn around and you go, is this it? Is that all there is? And I love that. That's the place where most of my clients come to me.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, and so I ask them, well, what would you love? What would you love?
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's go out 3 months, 5 months, a year. You're creating and breathing a life that you love. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? Get that information for yourself by being in the question. And for those people who say, well, Susan, I don't know what questions to ask, go to susanselfcheck.com. It's a gift for everyone where you can actually go in by yourself and check in on where you are in your life and how it's working for you. And perhaps it'll give you information on where you need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's helped thousands and thousands of people just to check in. When you're at that point where things are great, it's like, oh, I think I'm going to try this self-check and see where I am. Or when you're at that point where you're bumping up against, what the heck? I thought this was going to be different. I thought my life was going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
So I encourage people to go to susanselfcheck.com and check on that and see truly what else is possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you're really being the lighthouse for other women to really find their way or to really check back in with themselves, because a
Yeah.
lot of times there's that question like, I didn't, the dissatisfaction that like, the questioning. And a lot of times you're taught that, oh, well, I can't have that. That's too big. It's a fantasy. Like, who am I? Who am I to have this? Who do I think I am? Who do you think you are not to become that and share that with the world? Because, those nudges are coming to you for a reason to share something with the world.
Yeah.
And I love this, that there's this whole new paradigm that's happening with women and men as well, to seeking to be of service, to create a career of service to help other people as well. And you had mentioned that one thing about your book that's coming out, Breaking Free, Your Unique Path to Fearless Living, is you had said that you had released that 12-12-12, right? 12.
December 12th at 12 o'clock. So
Ah,
12,
that's
12,
what it
12.
was.
I
Okay.
just, I'm always listening, right?
Mm-hmm.
So part of the joy of the Congruent Life Method is learning to be in the question of your life,
Mm-hmm.
listening to your life. And so with that, I ask, okay, so what would be the greatest possible energies and to bring this book that I've just created out into the world and to bring it out through my publisher and put it out there. And I got 12, 12, 12. So what
Mm-hmm.
I did was on the Congruent Living Facebook, I had a party at
Mm-hmm.
12, 12, 12. And
Mm-hmm.
we had a Zoom room and we had lots of conversations and questions and we had some exercises at the end of each chapter. I have a journaling content in which I pose different questions for people to have that self-reflection. Again, change comes from within.
Mm-hmm.
So the willingness to listen to your life is listen to that voice from within that, you came here as an infinite spark.
Mm-hmm.
You chose a body for a human experience in Earth School. And then we forget
Mm-hmm.
that's who we are. We are here to learn, to gather, to spread our light.
Mm-hmm.
I love the French philosopher Emile Zola said, I came here to shout out loud.
Mm,
And that's
beautiful.
with joy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And you are planning on taking that to girls' high school. I mean,
Yeah.
what a wonderful, beautiful thing. There's so much confusion in high school and girls are trying to really make their own pathway and there's so much like coming at them as far as like, the before it used to be like the popular girls and now you've got the Instagram and all this social media that's causing so much distortion and pressure on them for you to bring something like this to their lives and to these schools, it's going to shape the next generation in a whole new way, along with how you mentioned on your back door there, live your life. Smile used to have that in schools where we used to teach. She's a living example of it. It's on her door, but bringing that to the children in school, like in grade school, for this to be hung on their wall and to have that as motivation for themselves, it's going to shape a whole new generation. And I love that you're doing that.
Thank you. I mean, the part of the impetus of breaking free, writing the book Breaking Free, was to create a space, a safe space for people to come to within themselves. As I say, each chapter, are you listening to your life? Breaking out of the mold that you created yourself as. So I walk with people hand in hand as we move through each chapter. And then there's a let's do it together journaling, which is so important to get the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions out of your head and on paper. Mm-hmm. And then you can actually be present with what it is in self-reflection, in asking for your guidance. It's about knowing and being present. And you talk a lot about alignment, Nancy, and for me, alignment has to do with connection. It's not aligning to what's out there. It's aligning to what brings you joy, what creates greater. And once you become those energies, you're like a ripple in a pond that now the universe is like, oh, I know what you'd like. I'll send it in. I'll have more of that. Rather than advocating from the past, it's about being present and looking towards the future. What would I love to create? If I'm not creating it now, if I am creating it now, how can I add to my light 100% for the highest good of all? And what could that look like? And just being present with that.
Yes, because alignment, it's always a feeling within yourself. It's how you resonate outward. So your alignment with your visions, your dreams, your goals, because that's something that's coming from inside you. And then that radiates outwards. And then you align with those energies because you're being that, right? You have to be it first. You have to feel it.
And again, it's something we weren't taught. That's why I love what I do. I love mindset coaching because it's really about changing through constant repetition to yourself what you like to have instead of what you decided you can't have. And so it's about being really present with all of that and then asking questions from there and to seeing the shift and change when people learn that they actually have the ability to be in the question of their life. So all those habits, all those traits, all those in trainings that we learned at a very young age, it's about letting those go and tapping in to what brings you joy. And it's as simple a question as, oh, if I choose this, I'm choosing this now. Does it bring me joy? No. Okay. All right. So what else is possible here that I haven't been willing to be or see? Step into that, indulge it, be that energy, let that energy be the ripple, and then let the universe chime in. Yeah.
And it's about living by your own beliefs or your own knowing and your own beingness instead of someone else's, because there's so much conditioning that we have been taught from an early age, don't do this. You learn like, if you cry, your mom's going to come in. If you're like, do something wrong, you're going to get punished, blah, blah, blah. And as it goes on through life, there's so much conditioning. I did when I lived in Portland, I had moved up there. I wanted to connect. I talk about divine feminine energy and I needed to connect to that more myself. So I joined a burlesque performance series. And women, we weren't taught how to dance or how to move. It was about coming into your own body and having that be expressed through yourself. So we created our own dance. How does it feel? We created our own routines, how we took everything off. But there was so much during the exercises, and we gather around in circle and we talk about things because I'd hear a lot like, oh no, don't move it like that. Oh, that's shameful. Like a lot of the old it was very challenging because we all heard within ourselves, like, no, don't move like that. Oh, don't be a SLUT or, but we had to overcome all that to express fully, our own beautiful dance. And that was something that really, that's where you hear a lot of your old conditioning was something like that. Something we always have to move into something that's uncomfortable for us to overcome that.
Or I could give you a different point of view.
Sure.
What if it was about being aware?
Mm-hmm.
And so, we often hear that information, and if it rings for you, if it's light for you, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, if it's light, it's right. And what if the uncomfortable was that springboard that you actually need to take to fly,
Mm-hmm.
to become the greatness of you? And what if there was no easy out?
Mm-hmm.
What if it was about being really present and asking the next question? Okay, what about this is uncomfortable? And what else is possible?
Mm-hmm.
If I wasn't choosing this uncomfortableness, what could I be choosing? And that's where I love to play with my clients.
Mm-hmm.
What about this makes you so uncomfortable that you're choosing to give up on your loves, your desires, your dreams?
Mm-hmm.
And what if there was a different way to be with all of this?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder. Wonderment's important. What could that create?
That's a really wonderful way of looking at that, looking into it, questioning and curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, that could have been used in the class a lot more. A lot of like, yeah, they went through the motion. Like but it was beautiful because there was this beautiful circle, like this women's circle where we talked about everything and we shared everything. And we'd see someone dance and we saw all the struggles that they were going in within and they expressed, and we didn't see that, but they were going through it within themselves. So yes, I love that. That's a really better way of looking at it. So before we hit record, I know we all, like a lot of women, have chosen certain paths or thought they were supposed to lead a certain life. And, now they're coming like, what am I doing here? What the heck's going on? So I'd love to hear the background of you. I know you've been coaching and doing this for over 20 years and you've been leading women. So what was it before? What was your life before that you just maybe got that nudge and you're like, yeah, there's something more for myself? What was your career path before that didn't, resonate with you anymore and you chose to, like, you woke up and like, okay, I want to do something else?
Well, thank you so much for that question. Again, for myself, we have many lives in one lifetime. So there are many times when we say, okay, this was fun, this was great, but it actually doesn't work for me anymore. And which is a great question that I encourage people to ask is, does this work for me? Because what might have supported us, we're not that person anymore. And so for myself, there's been many different parts and pieces, but I think the most pivotal is I was always a creative. And I spent, when I was a little child, they put me on the sidewalk with chalk and I'd be happy. And so I ended up as a practicing artist with my own studio, with galleries in architectural magazines. And this was like perfect, raising my kids, having my own studio. This gave me the person that I've always wanted to be. And then I created Heavy Metal Poisoning. And so within that span of time, I lost my hair, my eyebrows, my eyelashes. I was like, well, if I'm not a painter or printmaker, who am I? And that led me into investigating alternative ways of being. With the body, I found an amazing homeopath. With the mind, I started investigating people like Dr. Joe Dispenza. There's a whole list, in the book, I talk about what breaks the mold, and I have that list in the book. There's a whole list of people that I started reading: Eckhart Tolle, Diana Cooper, talking about ascension, talking about there's something greater here for you. And so as I started investigating that, I investigated hands-on healing. I went and got my certification in professional coaching and counseling. And I just started stacking all the learning that I was doing when I chose to ask the question, well, if I'm not a painter or a printmaker, who am I? Oh, I'm all of these things plus what else is possible. And with that, it really led me into looking at how I create my life differently, who I am, who I came here to be. And with that, pulling all of that information into the Congruent Life Method, creating the Congruent Living Academy, it just opened up until I found myself speaking at women's events, talking about being present, talking about being in the question, right? Talking about living a fearless life. And the more I step into that, and each time it's a challenge. It's like, what is it that people are asking of me? My mediumship started to open up. I started to channel. So when I'm working with clients one-on-one, maybe their grandmother might come through, or, I was working with a client from Mexico. She was about in her mid-20s, and I asked her, did you have a grandmother you were close to? Yes. I said, well, she'd like to talk to you. And this wasn't the initial part of the session, but it's who I be. And it turned out that this grandmother and this woman had slept in the same bed for 16 years. They were just in symbiosis together. And the grandmother just wanted to tell her she's so proud of her. Right. And so the reason I tell this story is we are so much more than who we think we are. And once we step into being in the question of our lives, into breaking free from the molds, from the points of views, from the beliefs, from the habits, we step up to the light that we truly be. And that for me was the willingness to sit with, if I'm not a painter, who am I? To just really sit with that and understand that I had created a whole persona based on that. And so understanding the ego, understanding the entrainment, understanding where we go to fit in to this reality, so people will just leave us alone. And then moving beyond that was pivotal. And as I learn, I bring all of that into the academy. Like we'll often start with like, oh, I'm just studying the Akashic Records. Can I share this with you guys? So because we don't exist alone. We weren't meant to. We are the only creature on the planet that decides we have to be alone. There's no other creature or element on the planet that has decided it must exist by itself. I mean, crazy, right? So that for me is the biggest challenge, that to encourage people to reach out beyond who they think they are to what they would love to create, because everything is truly possible.
And you said something really pivotal about when you got heavy metal poisoning. I created heavy metal poisoning.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard for people to take ownership. Like they get cancer, or, they all of a sudden in a divorce, or their children don't talk to them. Like, you take responsibility for creating this, because we create our lives. Like, that's such a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And you created a heavy metal poisoning because we do at some point, because at that point you were happy doing what you were doing before. And maybe you weren't quite seeking to change it up. And if you kept going on, maybe you would have been happy doing it, but you wouldn't be doing what you're doing now. So you open up to that possibility, taking ownership, learning about what it is, creating this, opening up to like creating this whole new life for yourself, and look at where you are now. So the possibilities you can't even imagine sometimes. It just becomes so much bigger than you, what your little mind, or what you can.
It is. It is. I love that you just said that. It is bigger than you. You have decided who you are, which is
limited,
you are so much more. We are so much more. And again, we are connected to our guides. We are connected to the archangels. We are connected to the trees outside. We are made out of water. We all know about the experiments that have been done watching water shift and change. Watch your water shift and change. Get connected to the full moons and the new moons and see what is your emotional tide like. We do not exist alone. And once we're willing, and that's what I love about meditation. That's what I love about being still. For some people, meditation can be breaking bread. It can be walking in the woods. It doesn't have to be sitting quietly, whatever that is for you. It's getting in touch with you and start to listen to you, what you love, what would create a joy-filled life, and being in the question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And wonderment.
Mm-hmm. And I like what we are water. And I have seen those experiments about
Yeah.
like the high vibration, how the pattern
Yeah.
of the water, it's beautiful. It's like the universe. It's like the geometric, beautiful patterns, kaleidoscopes. And I feel around this time, I know we have the solstice coming on a Friday.
Yeah.
And, the moon cycles, like there's times where I just lay in bed. I'm like, why can't I sleep? And I go to check to see what the moon's doing. I'm like, oh, that's why. And I know like
Yeah.
recently it just shifted like the last couple days where usually I can lay in bed, read something and pass out. I can't go to sleep or I'm waking up. I'm like, solstice is coming. I know there was huge solar flares, a lot of stuff going on. So,
Yeah.
but we are like magnificent. Can I talk? We are these magnificent beings and we have become disconnected from nature. And I do believe that we are returning more towards that connected earth-based living and being connected more to nature. And I know I'm drawn. I look out my window right now at the trees and I've got trails out my back door. I watch the squirrels
Nice.
and they all like follow the natural rhythms of life. Like these squirrels are born, they know how to like get their nuts and like dig holes, bury their nuts and like they're living in harmony with life. And I know that you are helping to coach women and teach them to live more in harmony. Can you, I know you have this Congruent Living Academy and there's different parts of the Living Academy, right? You've got different programs that are offered. I know there's the Living Academy, there's coaching, do you have a digital course or and such, but you're
No,
teaching, Mhm.
not
It's
up
live
until now. Up until now, it's all live. Part of my
membership too, right?
it's yes. So
Mm-hmm.
I have the Congruent Life Method in which I coach from, and I coach
Okay.
privately one-on-one VIP clients, and I coach within the context of the Congruent Living Academy. We meet every Tuesday, or the first 3 Tuesdays of every month, and we dive deep into connecting, into owning, into navigating. If you go through the acronym of Congruent, we touch on each of those. Every 3 months, I gift a book to
Mm-hmm.
your wisdom library. And so we will look at a book and study it and glean from it, and to add to the wisdom library of each and every one of the Academy members. It's a special, special place in which you actually come in. It's private. It doesn't go public. It's a safe space. It's about being coached. It's about being present. And again, it's connected to the acronym of Congruent. So it's connect, own, navigate, unveil. I'm just going through them now, but you get the idea, and ending with trust,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that the target of being in the Congruent Living Academy is learning to trust your voice, learning to trust that and connecting to that voice through different themes, through different questions. We have affirmations, we have exercises. It's a really blessed place that we're going into our 3rd year. And if any of the members are listening here, if you're, part of Nancy's tribe and you would love to know more about it, go to www.susanlazarhart.com. You'll find all the information and reach out to me. When you ask about digital, part of my joy is being present with people. So it's not about take this course in three steps or more, you're going to find you. No. The journey keeps on going. And as I say, part of my joy is to let that channeling come through, to let the mediumship come through, to be present with the questions people are asking, and to stay on track of connecting to you, owning your true voice. Navigate. How do I navigate the rough seas? Because there will be rough seas. And it's once you have these tools of being in the question, once you have this space of connection, it's amazing what happens. Like, what if there was no wrongness? What could that look like for you?
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love everything about this. And do you have some stories of transformation? I know you've worked with a lot of women. You don't have to name names, and I'm sure some women have just been totally transformed by working
Well,
with you.
yes, I have so many. Let me
Hmm.
tap on one that isn't too
Okay.
personal.
Okay.
Um, so I know that yes, okay. So I had someone coming to me initially, uh, with problems about their family. And she was a creative. She is a creative. And so for her, every time we would meet, she would always go back to the stories of the family, of her in the family, of what that family did or didn't do to her, what her position was or wasn't, and always, like a Geiger counter looking for proof. And so working with me, she learned to let go of her story and really tap into what would she love? Well, it turned out she was uber creative, and she would love to put this film that she had in her head into action. And so by the end of us working together, she not only had let go of the stories, she had resolved and reached out to the family members that she wanted to form something greater with. She let go of the family members who she realized were not aligned. And she learned to understand that her life is her creation. And the more she did that, the more she focused on what brought her joy, which is writing the script, which is joining a group to get this film done, which is accountability with this group, this film group. And she formed her own Facebook group with them. And she then started asking for funding. And this film has come out into the world.
Wow.
And so you can just sense that joy, that sense of like, yes, like I knew I could do this. Yes. Now what else now where else would I love to go? And so all of that stuff that was keeping her cluttered, keeping her occupied, had like no relevancy, because she was stepping into what brought her joy. As we step into our joy, we step into that newness of us. And again, it's just part of the joy of being a coach is being that accountability buddy for people with no point of view. And I think that, for myself, I have mentors that I lean into. It's so important to have a mentor to lean into, a mentor/coach/ accountability. And that's what I love about the private work that I do with people. I love the academy, and I also love those who choose to have private one-on-one work with me and are committed to changing what isn't working with them. Yeah.
You mentioned stories. So many of us have stories, and we identify ourselves by it. Like we create this, and it keeps a lot of people stuck in their stories and in the past, and I can't do anything. So how would you, through maybe your congruent life or your coaching, and I know you said to live into the question, what would you love? But right now, anyone that's listening right now and they're stuck in their stories, what is some tangible advice that you could give them right now to start creating a new, not story, but living in their truth and letting go of the stories?
Great question. Thank you so much. So one of the questions I would ask if I was with a client right now and they were holding on to their story, I would ask, what's the value of this story? If you weren't this story, who would you be? Like, let's step into that. What could that look like? What would that feel like? What would that taste like? And I would say, if somebody's listening to me now, listen to me as if we're in a coaching session. Who would you be? What would you be? If that story wasn't true or real, what would you be creating? And go out 6 months. Now you're in a new story. You're creating something new. It's everything you've always wanted. Write that down. No matter how silly, how crazy, you say, I can't, no. Write it all down. Look at it and ask, okay, so is this what I truly desire? Is this true for me? Or is this bouncing off of that old story? What would I love? And then look at that and say, okay, which one of these is my top priority? Which one pops for me? And that's the alignment, Nancy, we were talking about. Is this aligned with what brings me joy? Not, oh, my mother always wanted me to do this, or my father always wanted to do this, or I had to do this because we had no money, or what. No. Tap in. Remember, this is your time. This is your coaching time with me right now. Don't waste it on other people's stories of who you be, what you be. Tap in, write it down, and then ask, okay, which one of these Where would I like to start here? Because once you're open in the question, then you can start asking questions from there. Okay, what's my next best step? So with this client that I just shared you this story, after we got through points of views about family, what a family was supposed to be, what it wasn't supposed to be, all of that, after we worked through all of that, then what would you love? Well, I really love to, I've always had this film in my head. Okay, let's write that down. Now, what would be your next best step here? And so by her own volition, she went and started Googling, groups that are beginning on creating a film, because she knew she liked to be part of a group. She liked co-creation, and she liked the feeling of success. Once you tap into that, okay, now let's choose things that align with that. So thinking about your story about who did what and when to you, does that align with success? Does that align with accountability? Does that align with will choosing this story get my film done? Great question to ask, right? Whatever this is for you, will choosing this emotion, thought, or feeling create where I'm asking to go? And if it isn't, let it go, baby. I always say, let it go, let it flow. Just let it go.
I'm like taking all kinds of notes here.
Cool.
Yeah. So
Thank you for your question.
No, it's like tapping in. So you take them, like, I think it's just so fascinating. Like she just, I have this idea. I've always wanted a film. And she hadn't taken any of these steps before to create this like vision that she had for herself. And you helped her take her from those beginning, like into the actual manifestation of this film. And now she's got all these other beautiful ideas. And that's just one example of, and then taking that story that she's lived in before and like, how does this align with what I'm trying to create? And then letting that go and choosing something different. Will choosing this help me create this? And it's like, no, that won't. I'm stuck in this. And I think it's just a beautiful method. And, I love everything that you've, shown us here. Is there anything else that was such great, like everyone got a little bit of coaching right there. And I advise you to write it all down. And of course, to seek out, working with Susan. And it's Susan, right? Or Suzanne? Susan. What do you like? Okay, Susan, that's what I thought. I can cut that out.
When Leonard Cohen was big, in the hippy dippy days, and it was Leonard Cohen singing Suzanne Takes You Down to a Place by the River, I'm like, I started signing all my paintings Suzanne. Right? Suzanne. And I'm like, that's not me. I'm Susan.
Like me. I feel like a Suzanne right now with my little beret hiding my like.
You got the French flair on. I love it.
It's to hide the hair today. I'm like, what am I going to do with it? But I wanted to ask you, is there any last minute advice, or is there anything that you would like to share with our listeners that we haven't covered? I mean, there's so much that we can I would say
about. If you are like many people, waking up in the middle of your life, waking up in the middle of your day, and just looking around and acknowledging what works for you and what doesn't work for you, I would say, practice acknowledging what works for you and what doesn't work for you without any reference, without any story. And then ask yourself, what would I love? So if this isn't working for me, cool. No drama, no trauma. What would I love? And play in the energy of that, because it's the energy of that joy that creates what you're asking to create. And the universe knows to match it 100%. And that's why often when things turn out, oh my God, that was just luck, or that was serendipity. No. You asked for it. And so another question might be, what was I asking for that this showed up? Like I've been with the same partner, married for 44 years.
Wow.
And people ask me, how do you do that? And my response is, I asked for him. I can remember the exact moment in time. I was on a country road. I was about 17 or 18, and I looked up at the stars, and I said, I really want a nurturing boyfriend. And I found him when I was 21. So sometimes the universe, if you're willing to be in the question, the universe takes its time for you to actually meet the universe where you are and where you're asking to be. So if something isn't working for you, ask yourself, what do I love about staying in this place? And if the answer is no, I don't love it, Susan, how could you say that? I might really challenge you and say, there's something here you love. It could be you love the pattern. It could be you know what this uncomfortableness is and you don't want to let it go. It could be that you've decided something, but only you know what it is that you've decided. And that's where, if I let go of that decision, who would I be? So I think that was a very long explanation for a simple question that you asked me. But this is the Academy. This is how I play in the Congruent Living Academy. We often go off on these tangents because it's tapping into the energy of what people are asking for. Often we'll ask a question that has nothing to do. It's like an iceberg with what people are really asking for.
Yeah.
So I can only hope that I have filled your audience with an abundance of nurturing, energetic questions that they can start to play with themselves in breaking free and creating a life they love.
And I like how you said it, the tip of the iceberg, like the question is the tip of the iceberg. And then there's so much, it goes so far beneath. There's so much that more to it than the question. Now, I love that you went into that detail. And there are two things that I hit on. Like, first of all, when you're asking the question, what do I love? I feel that in my heart. I feel whenever you say, what do I love? It resonates. It's not just like, oh, what I love. I really feel that. I feel your expansive energy. I feel you. You've got amazing, beautiful energy.
Thank you.
And then asking for it. When you asked for your husband, I love that you've been with him for so long, because there's been times in my life where I've asked for something and I know that it's given. I feel it. And I said years ago, I'm ready for a relationship. And I knew, and I always believed it would come. I mean, I got lessons for years and years and years. But there are times, whether it's a soulmate, whether it's a job, whether it's something. There was another time where I knew I wanted to work with this real estate company. I knew it. And I did. It didn't work out. But there's times when you ask for it and you feel it and you have it. So for someone that's been single for so long, people are like, well, how are you single? And it is something like, what am I getting out of this? Well, how have I created this? And people ask you've been married so long, how do you do it? Because, marriage comes with their challenges as well. And I love that, like, that you asked for it and it was given. It's been so wonderful having you on. And
thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been a treat.
Yes. And before we go, two more questions. What is lighting you up right now? I know you have this new book that just came out, 12-12-12, which was beautiful. So it's just out. And I know that you want to bring it into the girls' schools. Where can people find your book? Is it, I know you probably have it on your website.
Go to Amazon.
Okay, great. Amazon.
Amazon.com, Breaking Free, Your Unique Path to Fearless Living by Susan Lazar Hart. That's me.
Yeah, Suzanne.
And also I want to encourage people, check in with you. And by that, I encourage you to come to the susanselfcheck.com. It's a personal assessment. It's between you and you. It's nothing else except that space for which you should discover, oh, I thought I was a little farther ahead than I am. Or, oh, I didn't realize this doesn't work for me, but it actually doesn't. Because once change begins from within, bottom line, change starts from you, from your desire, your willingness, your demand for more. And how do we know that? We need to check in, which is why the Congruent Living Self-Assessment was created. As I say, go to susanselfcheck.com, check it out. And definitely Breaking Free has already created so much change. I gave it as a gift to a friend of mine, and she wrote back and she said, this is like yoga for the mind. I'm like, oh, nice. Thank you so much. I so appreciate that. Yeah.
I'm going to get a copy of that myself. And definitely after we end this call, I'm going to go onto your selfcheck.com, because why not?
Cool.
Yeah,
Yes,
always trying
definitely.
to improve myself. And one more question before you go, I asked all my guests, and that is for you. What does it mean for you to live with an awakened heart?
I love that. An awakened, such a rich question. Thank you so much.
You're
An
welcome.
awakened heart is one that is nurtured. Like the heart is the very first organ that's created when we are in as an embryo. It's the very first organ. So it's your North Star. Now we know when we ask a question or we make a decision and we contract. Well, you're contracting your heart as well. And the heart is your information. An awakened heart for myself is something I tap into every day. In the morning when I do a quiet meditation, and then I ask my guides, what message do you have for me today? And I write it down. And I know that is that space, no matter what occurs in the night, no matter what information I wake up in the morning, because as empaths, we have a capacity to pick up everybody's thoughts, feelings, and emotions. If I tap into my heart, if I expand that heart into this white, pink, and gold space that goes beyond me, goes my body, goes beyond the mental, physical, and spiritual areas and arenas that I play in, and so that I am inside the space. So the heart is no longer inside me. I am inside the space of a heart and what that creates. And so we have the capacity to awaken to our hearts every day in every way. And it's about taking that moment, being still, tapping in, putting your hand on your heart. Tap into that space, tap into the energies that are here for you, and meet your heart where it is. And that will awaken yourself and your day in every way.
That was absolutely beautiful. And I am taking that into my day. And it's cool that you said like that sparkling pink energy, because that's what I see when I expand the energy out. It's like it got little like gold glitter and it's light pink and it expands outwards. And sometimes I send it across the whole, universe. And that's beautiful. What a beautiful explanation of an awakened heart to leave this beautiful conversation with. Susan, it was so wonderful having you on.
Thank you.
I can't wait for all my listeners to find you. Go do the selfcheck.com, join some of her programs, her membership, and really live from that awakened heart. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm so blessed. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Awakened Heart podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, head on over to your favorite podcast app to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, you can reach me at theawakenedheartpodcast.com.